Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Just a Damn Minute. I was going to take this week to be a little more lighthearted, but things took place in Canada this week that I couldn't ignore. The week started with some sadness as Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent was deliberately run over and killed on a military base in Quebec. Canada didn't have a lot of time to recover from this when last Wednesday a gunman walked up to a soldier guarding the National War Memorial and gunned him down in cold blood. The gunman then headed toward the center block of Parliament where he got inside the building and a firefight ensued and he was taken down before he could harm anybody else. It was a tough week in Canada. It raised a lot of questions about national security, about, for some reason, Islamicism. In my opinion, this is actually just a really sad story about a series of really sad people who probably needed a lot of help. That's not going to stop Prime Minister Stephen Harper from trying to conflate the events of last week with what's happening in the Middle East. Mr. Harper was described in the Globe and Mail this week this way. Harper's characterization of and response to what happened in Ottawa differed noticeably from those of his opposition rivals who pleaded for MPs not to let the attack change Canada and the liberties citizens enjoy. Mr. Harper used terrorism or terrorist 5 times in his address, calling the assault on the War Memorial and Parliament a terrorist attack, and saying there are increasing numbers of places where the planet is descending into savagery as he emphasized the need to give security and police forces new powers. Hopefully not everyone's buying Harper's American-style rhetoric, though you're going to hear a lot of that over the next few days. There's a bill before the Parliament in Canada to extend police and military powers around surveillance and apprehension of so-called terrorists. The opposition certainly isn't buying this rhetoric, as Justin Trudeau was quoted in the same story as having said, "Criminals do not dictate how we act as a nation, how we govern, or the way we treat each other. They do not dictate our values. They will not make the rules about this land we share." Thomas Mulcair, the leader of the official opposition NDP, was similarly eloquent when he said, "We woke up in a country of love, diversity, peace, and this has not changed. We cannot allow that openness and freedom to be rolled back." The best thing that I read about this topic actually comes from one of my favorite online writers, a fellow by the name of Cory Doctorow, who is one of the founders of boingboing.net. Why Corporal Cirillo was killed doesn't matter because he was ultimately killed for a lunacy and irrational belief that cannot ever be justified. What he was killed for is irrelevant. What matters is what he died for. Corporal Cirillo died for Canadian values, the values of liberal democracy, of freedom, and due process, or government whose legitimacy arises from a care for all Canadians and a willingness to put evidence above partisanship, compromise above political point scoring. Now, this was a horrible event that was masterfully covered by the CBC. It was coverage that was led by Peter Mansbridge, and there were reporters on the Hill that day that were calling in, and not once did they exaggerate what was happening, and they, in fact, held themselves back from sharing information when they weren't able to confirm it. What a novel idea. For the CBC's action last Wednesday, they actually earned praise from several online outlets, including Media Bistro and Mother Jones. Here's an excerpt from the Mother Jones article detailing the coverage that they saw from the CBC that day. "The broadcast was deliberative and deferential to the facts, even when they were sparse. Exacting and painstaking, but never slow or boring, Mansbridge weighed the credibility of every detail, constantly framing and reframing what we knew, and most crucially, how we knew it. He literally spoke the news as it happened, using his experience not to opine nor fill the gaps in his knowledge, but to provide the necessary support for his team's reporting." In my opinion, Peter Mansbridge and his team that day made a strong case for a properly funded public broadcaster in Canada. I hope it doesn't fall on deaf ears as the emerging Jian Ghomeshi getting fired from CBC story starts to fill the airwaves. Of course, out of this very, very dark week in Canadian politics comes a bit of a bright light, and this one in the form of House of Commons Sergeant-at-Arms Kevin Vickers. Vickers, as the Sergeant-at-Arms, is in charge of all security for the House of Commons, and he answered the call of duty on Wednesday when he took out the gunman who'd made his way into the center block of the Parliament building. At least one website is telling the story of right after Vickers took down the gunman, whereupon Vickers walked into the room where Conservative MPs and the Prime Minister were hiding and said, "Only I put him down." I read that on the Talking Points memo blog, and they actually called Vickers the Lord High Badass of Canada, which I fully agree with. Somebody give this guy the goddamn Order of Canada. Thank you to Corporal Nathan Cirillo, to Patrice Vincent, to Sergeant-at-Arms Kevin Vicker, and to all the people who stand on guard for this great country. It's been a tough week for Canada, but it's not something we can't get through together. Peace and love, everybody. I'll see you next week. It's already snowing here in Edmonton. It's not even winter yet, officially, and it's snowing. Today there was snow outside. So to keep you warm over this cold winter, I'm asking for you to click the subscribe button, to follow me on Twitter, to check me out on Tumblr, and to find me online. I really enjoy that you guys watch this every week. I do it for you.